My cousin and I promised to be each other's maid of honor since we were teenagers, but she started dating a trust fund gym owner and replaced me with his influencer friend. Then I caught her fiancé cheating with the maid of honor and she wouldn't listen to my warning until it all blew up at the wedding. Nobody in my family seems to understand why I did what I did. My cousin Cassidy, 31F, just had her wedding fall apart in front of 200 guests and somehow, I'm, 33F, the villain in her story. Cassidy and I grew up in Bridgewater. Our mothers are sisters. Her family had 3 boys and mine had just me. From the time we were kids, we were inseparable. We spent every holiday together, every summer vacation, every birthday. When other girls talked about their sisters, we talked about each other. Our mothers used to joke that they should have just had us share a room growing up because we were always at each other's houses anyway. When we were teenagers, we made a promise. We were sitting in her basement watching some romantic movie and we swore that when we got married, we would be each other's maid of honor. No matter what. We even wrote it down on a piece of paper and signed it like some kind of contract. Looking back, it seems silly. But at the time, it meant everything. I got married 3 years ago. Cassidy was my maid of honor. She planned my bachelorette party, helped me pick out my dress, gave a speech at my wedding that made everyone cry. She did everything right. I thought when her time came, I would do the same. About 2 years ago, Cassidy started dating this guy named Malcolm. He owns a chain of fitness centers that his grandfather started. His family has money. Old money. The kind where they have a wing of the local hospital named after them. Malcolm himself is fine, I guess. He talks about protein shakes and investment portfolios. He has opinions about things like the best luxury car brands and which country club has better golf courses. Every conversation with him feels like listening to someone read from a manual on how rich people are supposed to act. I tried to like him. I really did. But something about the whole relationship felt off. Cassidy comes from a good family. Her dad is a neurosurgeon and her mom is a dentist. But they're not Malcolm's kind of wealthy. They work for their money. When Malcolm introduced Cassidy to his parents, I heard from Cassidy's mom that they spent the whole dinner asking about her family background and where she went to school. Not in a normal getting to know you way. In a checking her credentials way. About 6 months after they started dating, I noticed Cassidy changing. She started going to Malcolm's gym every day. She joined this group of people who hung out there. One of them was this woman named Tiffany who runs some kind of fashion and lifestyle blog. Tiffany posts pictures of her outfits and gets free stuff from brands. Cassidy had never cared much about the kind of thing before. But suddenly she was talking about Tiffany all the time. Tiffany said this. Tiffany thinks that. Tiffany knows this celebrity. One night, Cassidy and I went out for dinner. Just the two of us like we used to do every week. I asked her if she was really happy with Malcolm. I tried to be gentle about it. I said something like, "Do you think he's with you for the right reasons?" She put down her fork and stared at me. She asked me what I meant by that. I tried to explain that I just wanted to make sure she wasn't settling. That she deserved someone who loved her for her, not for what she represented. She left the restaurant. Just stood up and left. She texted me later that night saying I had no right to judge her relationship. That I was being controlling and that maybe I was jealous because my husband doesn't come from money. I tried calling her. She didn't answer. I sent her messages apologizing and trying to explain. She responded once saying she needed space. That space turned into weeks. Then months. I would see from social media that she was spending all her time with Malcolm's friend group. Lots of pictures of her and Tiffany at fancy restaurants and clubs. Her mom told my mom that Cassidy was fine but just busy with her new friends. My aunt tried to get us to talk but Cassidy kept saying she wasn't ready. About 8 months ago, Malcolm proposed. Cassidy posted about it online. The ring was huge. I sent her a congratulations message. She thanked me with just a short reply. No phone call. No excitement. Just, thanks. 2 months later, she had an engagement party at some country club. I got an invitation in the mail like everyone else. My husband and I went. The party was full of people I didn't know. Malcolm's family and friends. Some of Cassidy's work colleagues. Tiffany was there acting like she was hosting the whole thing. Halfway through the party, Cassidy pulled me aside into a hallway. She was holding a glass of wine and she looked uncomfortable. She said she wanted to talk to me about something important. My stomach dropped but in a good way. I thought this was it. This was where she would ask me to be her maid of honor and we would hug and everything would go back to normal. She told me she had chosen Tiffany to be her maid of honor. She said it quickly like she wanted to get it over with. I just stood there. She kept talking. She said that Tiffany understood the kind of wedding she wanted to have. That Tiffany knew all the right vendors and venues. That Tiffany would fit in better with the bridal party she was putting together. Then she said that I wouldn't really be comfortable with that crowd anyway. That I'm more of a quiet person and this was going to be a big society wedding with a lot of important people. I didn't yell or cry or make a scene. I just nodded. I told her congratulations again and went back to the party. My husband could tell something was wrong but I didn't want to talk about it there. We stayed for another hour and then left. I didn't tell my mom what happened. I knew if I did, there would be drama between her and my aunt. Cassidy's mom would defend Cassidy. My mom would defend me. It would turn into a whole thing. So I just said the party was nice and left it at that. A few months passed. Cassidy's wedding planning was all over social media. Tiffany posted about every detail. The dress shopping. The cake tasting. The venue tours. Cassidy sent me an invitation to the bachelorette party. It was actually 2 events. One was a weekend trip to a beach resort for the bridesmaids. The other was a local party at a wine bar for everyone else. I was invited to the wine bar one. Not the trip. Of course not. I almost didn't go. My husband said I should skip it. That I didn't need to put myself through that. But I thought maybe it would be a chance to reconnect with Cassidy. Maybe in a group setting without all the wedding pressure, we could find our way back to each other. I was wrong. The wine bar party was awkward from the start. Cassidy's new friends were there. Tiffany was there wearing something expensive and talking loudly about the resort trip they had just come back from. Cassidy barely spoke to me. She was laughing and taking pictures with everyone else. I sat at a table in the corner with a couple of other relatives who also seemed out of place. At one point, I went to the bathroom. When I came back, Tiffany was showing everyone pictures from the resort trip on her phone. Pictures of Cassidy looking happy and relaxed. Cassidy saw me standing there and quickly changed the subject. Like she didn't want me to see how much fun she had without me. I left after about 2 hours. I made up an excuse about not feeling well. Nobody seemed to care. 3 weeks ago, on a Saturday night, I went to pick up some takeout food. The restaurant was near Malcolm's main gym location. When I came out with my food, I saw Malcolm's car in the parking lot. I recognized it because it's a bright blue sports car that he's very proud of. Then I saw him. He was getting out of Tiffany's car. Her car was parked in a dark corner of the lot away from the lights. Malcolm saw me at the same moment. His face went completely white. He turned around and speed walked back toward the gym entrance. Tiffany ducked down in her car like she was looking for something on the floor. But I had already seen her. I got in my car and drove home. I told my husband what I saw. He said I needed to tell Cassidy right away. That she deserved to know before the wedding. But I knew Cassidy. I knew if I came to her with this, she would accuse me of lying. Of trying to ruin her wedding because I was bitter about not being maid of honor. She had already decided I was the jealous cousin who couldn't handle her success. So I did something different. I called her the next day. I kept my voice casual. I told her she should have a conversation with Malcolm. That she should mention my name and see how he reacts. That he might have something to tell her. Cassidy laughed. Actually laughed. She said I was being paranoid and weird. She asked if I was seriously calling her a week before her wedding to play games. I told her I wasn't playing games. That I was trying to help her. She said if I really wanted to help, I would stop trying to cause problems and just show up to her wedding with a smile. She hung up. I didn't call back. The wedding was yesterday. It was at this beautiful estate venue that probably cost more than my entire wedding. I wore a simple dress and sat with my husband near the back. The ceremony was supposed to start at 5 p.m. At 4:45, guests were seated and the wedding party was lined up. The music started. Malcolm walked down the aisle with his parents. Then the bridesmaids started. Tiffany was last because she was the maid of honor. Tiffany made it about halfway down the aisle before she stopped walking. She turned around and looked back at Malcolm. Then she started crying. Not quiet tears. Loud sobbing. The music stopped. People started whispering. Malcolm's mother stood up from her seat in the front row. Tiffany started yelling. She said she couldn't do this. That she couldn't stand there and watch him marry someone else. That they had been seeing each other for over a year. That his parents made him choose Cassidy because she was more appropriate. That he was only marrying Cassidy to please his family. That he told Tiffany he would call off the wedding but he never did. The whole venue went silent. Malcolm's face was red. His mother was trying to get Tiffany to be quiet. Then Tiffany turned to Malcolm's mother and screamed at her. She called her a snob. Said that Malcolm's whole family treated her like trash because she was just an influencer and not from their social class. That they forced Malcolm to pick someone they approved of. Cassidy appeared at the back of the aisle where she had been waiting to walk down. Her father was standing next to her. Her mother rushed to her from her seat. Cassidy stood there for a minute just staring at Malcolm. Then she turned around and walked out through the side door with her parents. Malcolm ran after them. Tiffany collapsed into a chair crying. The officiant announced that the ceremony was not going to happen. Guests started gathering their things and leaving. My husband and I left with everyone else. I haven't heard from Cassidy. Her mother called my mother yesterday to tell her what happened in case she heard it from someone else first. My mom asked if I knew anything about it. I told her about seeing Malcolm and Tiffany in the parking lot. About the phone call where I tried to warn Cassidy. My mom didn't say much. Just that this was a terrible situation. Now I'm waiting. I know eventually Cassidy is going to call me. And I have no idea what I'm going to say. Update 1: Cassidy called me yesterday morning. I saw her name on my phone and let it ring 3 times before answering. Part of me wanted to let it go to voicemail. But I answered. She didn't say hello. She just started yelling. She said I was the reason she got humiliated in front of everyone. That I knew what was happening and I didn't tell her. That I gave her some cryptic warning instead of being honest. That a real cousin would have made sure she knew the truth before she walked down the aisle in front of 200 people. I let her yell for a while. When she finally stopped to take a breath, I asked her if she was done. She said no, she wasn't done. She said I let her get embarrassed because I was bitter about Tiffany being maid of honor. That I wanted her to suffer. That's when I stopped feeling bad. I told her I tried to warn her. That she called me paranoid and hung up on me. I asked her what exactly she wanted me to do. Show up at her house with pictures? Follow Malcolm around with a camera? She had spent the last year treating me like I didn't exist. Like I was too boring for her new life. Why would I risk getting screamed at again when she had already made it clear she didn't trust me or value me? Cassidy went quiet. Then she said that's not the point. That I should have tried harder. That I should have known how important this was. I told her she was right. It was important. Important enough that she should have listened the first time. Important enough that she should have trusted her cousin of 30 years over some woman she met at a gym a year ago. She hung up on me again. Honestly, I wasn't surprised. 2 days later, my aunt called my mom. Cassidy had apparently told her mother that she wanted my mom to stop talking to her. That our whole side of the family took my side and that meant they didn't care about her humiliation. My aunt was calling to tell my mom that Cassidy was hurting and saying things she didn't mean. My mom asked my aunt what she thought about the whole situation. My aunt was quiet for a while. Then she said she heard both sides now. That Cassidy told her I saw Malcolm with Tiffany and didn't say anything. My mom explained that I did try to say something. That Cassidy laughed at me and hung up. My aunt sighed and said she figured it was something like that. My aunt told my mom that Cassidy was staying with her and her husband right now. That Cassidy hasn't left the house since the wedding. That she's been crying and sleeping and not eating much. Malcolm tried calling her dozens of times. His parents even showed up at my aunt's house but my uncle told them to leave. Apparently, Malcolm's father tried to explain that Malcolm and Tiffany's relationship was just a fling. That Malcolm loved Cassidy and wanted to work things out. My uncle closed the door in his face. My aunt said something else too. She said Cassidy had been acting different for months before the wedding. That she had become obsessed with impressing Malcolm's family. That she bought expensive clothes she couldn't afford. That she started talking differently. Using words like summer as a verb and referring to places by initials that my aunt had to look up. My aunt said she tried to talk to Cassidy about it but Cassidy shut her down. Said her mother didn't understand the world she was entering. The conversation between my mom and my aunt ended with my aunt saying she hoped Cassidy and I could eventually work things out. But that right now Cassidy needed to be angry at someone and I was the easiest target. My mom said she understood but that she wasn't going to stop talking to her sister because her niece was misplacing blame. Cassidy didn't call me again after that first conversation. But she did text me 4 days after the wedding. It was a long message. She said she was sorry for yelling. That she knew I tried to warn her. But she also said that I failed her as a cousin. That I should have found a way to make her listen. That I knew how important the wedding was and I should have done more. She said she couldn't forgive me for letting her walk into that situation. That every time she thinks about that day, she'll remember that I could have prevented it. I read the message 3 times. Then I responded. I told her she was right about one thing. I could have done more. I could have shown up at her house and forced her to listen. I could have called Malcolm and confronted him. I could have tracked down Tiffany and demanded proof. But I didn't do any of those things because she had spent a year showing me that I didn't matter to her anymore. That I was an embarrassment to her new life. That she valued a woman she barely knew over someone she grew up with. So no, I didn't fight harder to save her from her own choices. I told her I was sorry the wedding fell apart. I was sorry she got hurt. But I wasn't sorry for protecting myself from someone who had already made it clear I wasn't worth her time. She didn't respond to that message. My mom told me later that my aunt said Cassidy read my message and cried for an hour. That she told her mother I was right but she couldn't admit it to me. That she had ruined everything by choosing Malcolm's world over the people who actually cared about her. My aunt tried to convince Cassidy to call me and apologize properly. To actually take responsibility instead of spreading the blame around. Cassidy refused. She said too much had been broken. That even if we made up, it would never be the same. My aunt had to agree with her on that. 3 days ago, Cassidy finally told her mother she didn't expect her to cut off my mom. That she knew she was being unreasonable. My aunt told my mom this over the phone. She sounded relieved. She said she hated being put in the middle. That she loved her daughter but she also knew her daughter had made mistakes. Big ones. My mom asked if Cassidy was doing any better. My aunt said she was starting to. That she was eating again. Talking again. She had blocked Malcolm and Tiffany on everything. Malcolm's parents tried to reach out through mutual friends but Cassidy made it clear she wanted nothing to do with that family. Apparently, Malcolm's mother had the nerve to suggest that the wedding could still happen. That they could move past this little incident. My uncle apparently told that particular friend to never contact them with messages from those people again. My aunt said Cassidy was talking about moving. Getting a new apartment somewhere across town where she wouldn't run into anyone from Malcolm's circle. Starting over completely. My mom said that sounded like a good idea. That sometimes you need a clean break. I haven't decided how I feel about any of this. Cassidy hurt me long before that wedding fell apart. She made her choices and those choices had nothing to do with Malcolm or Tiffany. She chose to value status over history. She chose to believe that I wasn't good enough for her new life. The affair and the wedding disaster just made all of that obvious to everyone else. My husband asked me if I would ever want to be close with Cassidy again. I told him I honestly don't know. Right now I just feel tired. Tired of thinking about it. Tired of being the bad guy in someone else's story. Tired of wondering if I should have done something different. Update 2: I wasn't planning to write another update, but some things happened that I need to get out. About 3 weeks after my last update, I found out I was pregnant. My husband and I had been trying for a few months, so it was good news. We told our parents right away. My mom was excited. She immediately called my aunt to share the news because that's what they do. They tell each other everything. My aunt congratulated my mom and said she would tell Cassidy. I didn't think much of it at the time. Cassidy and I hadn't spoken since those text messages. I figured my pregnancy would just be another piece of family information that got passed around without any real reaction from her. 2 days after my mom told my aunt, I got a text from Cassidy. It was short. Just congratulations and that she was happy for me. I stared at that message for a long time. It felt strange. Like hearing from someone you used to know in another life. I texted back a thank you. That was it. But then a week later, Cassidy texted again. This time it was longer. She said she had been thinking about me a lot. About us. About how things used to be before everything got complicated. She said she missed the cousin she grew up with. She didn't apologize again. Didn't take back anything she said before. Just said she missed me. I didn't know what to do with that. My husband said I should ignore it if I wasn't ready to talk to her. But something made me respond. I told her I missed parts of our old relationship too. But that I didn't miss being treated like I wasn't good enough. That I didn't miss being excluded and dismissed. She didn't reply to that for 2 days. When she finally responded, she said she wanted to see me. That she wanted to talk in person. Not over text. She suggested meeting for coffee. I agreed, but I picked the place. A coffee shop near my house. Somewhere I felt comfortable. We met last week on a Tuesday afternoon. I got there first and sat at a table by the window. Cassidy walked in 10 minutes late. She looked different. Thinner. Her hair was shorter. She wasn't wearing the expensive clothes I had seen in all those social media pictures. Just jeans and a plain sweater. She sat down across from me and ordered coffee. We didn't talk for the first few minutes. Just sat there drinking coffee and not looking at each other. Finally she started. She said she had been doing a lot of thinking. That the last couple months had forced her to look at her choices. She said she knew she had hurt me. That she had been so focused on fitting into Malcolm's world that she forgot about the people who actually mattered. I asked her if she was apologizing. She said yes. But then she added that she also needed me to understand why she did what she did. She said Malcolm's family made her feel important in a way she never had before. That they treated her like she was special. That being part of that world felt good even if it meant changing who she was. She said she knew it was wrong, but at the time it felt right. I told her I understood wanting to feel special. But that she had thrown away 30 years for people who only valued her as long as she played a part. That she chose a fake friend over a real one because the fake friend had the right image. Cassidy nodded. She said she knew that now. That losing everything made her realize what she had given up. Then she said something that made me put down my coffee. She said she needed me to understand that I wasn't blameless either. That I could have fought harder for our relationship. That I gave up too easily when she started pulling away. That if I really cared, I would have pushed back instead of just accepting the distance. I felt my face get hot. I told her I did push back. That I tried to warn her about Malcolm. That I reached out multiple times and she ignored me. She shook her head. She said I gave her one vague warning and then I disappeared. That I should have been more direct. Should have shown up at her door with proof instead of expecting her to figure it out from a cryptic phone call. We went back and forth like this for a while. Her saying I should have done more. Me saying I did what I could with someone who clearly didn't want my input. Eventually we both got quiet. The coffee shop was filling up with other people and we were just two women sitting across from each other with nothing left to say. Cassidy asked about the baby. When I was due. If I knew what I was having yet. I answered her questions. She told me she hoped I would let her be part of the baby's life. That she wanted to be the kind of aunt she used to imagine being back when we were kids planning our futures. I told her I didn't know yet. That I needed time to figure out what kind of relationship we could have now. She accepted that. Said she understood. We finished our coffee and left. She hugged me in the parking lot. It felt awkward and forced. Like hugging a distant relative at a funeral. After that meeting, Cassidy started texting me every few days. Nothing heavy. Just checking in. Asking how I was feeling. Sharing random things like she used to. I responded sometimes. Other times I didn't. My husband asked if I was letting her back in. I told him I didn't know what I was doing. My mom noticed Cassidy and I were talking again. She asked if we had worked things out. I told her we were trying, but I wasn't sure what we were trying to get back to. My mom said that was honest at least. That maybe we couldn't get back what we had before. Maybe we could only build something new. Last week Cassidy texted asking if she could come over sometime. See the house. Bring some baby things she had bought. I told her maybe in a few weeks. That I wasn't ready for that yet. She said okay and didn't push. The truth is I don't know if I want Cassidy in my life the way she used to be. That version of us doesn't exist anymore. She killed it when she chose Tiffany and Malcolm's world over me. And maybe I helped kill it by not fighting harder. I don't know. What I do know is that the person I grew up with isn't the person who sits across from me at coffee shops now. And I'm probably not the same person to her either. My aunt told my mom that Cassidy is doing better. She moved to a new apartment across town like she planned. She's working on rebuilding her life. She stopped posting on social media entirely. Deleted most of her pictures from the last year. My aunt said it's like Cassidy is trying to erase that whole chapter. I wonder if you can really do that. Erase the choices you made. Pretend they didn't change you. Cassidy seems to think she can go back to being the cousin I grew up with if she just apologizes enough and shows up enough. But I look at her now and I see someone who chose wrong when it mattered. Someone who valued the wrong things and hurt the right people. And I don't know if that's someone I can trust again. Update 3: I had my baby 3 weeks ago. A girl. My husband and I named her Ariel. She's healthy and loud and sleeps in 2-hour stretches that make me understand why people say parenting is hard. Cassidy found out through my aunt, of course. She texted me congratulations and asked if she could visit. I told her to wait a few weeks until I adjusted to having a newborn. She said she understood and sent a gift card. She kept texting throughout those weeks. Nothing pushy. Just checking in. Asking how I was doing. Sharing pictures of things she thought were cute. Baby clothes. Toys. Books. It felt like she was trying very hard to be present without being overwhelming. I finally told her she could visit last week. She showed up at my house on Saturday afternoon with a bag full of baby things. Clothes in different sizes. A stuffed animal. Some books. She held Ariel for about an hour while I ate lunch and my husband napped. She was good with her. Gentle. She talked to Ariel in that soft voice people use with babies. Told her stories about when we were kids. About the trouble we used to get into. After Ariel fell asleep, Cassidy and I sat in the living room. She asked how I was really doing. I told her the truth. That I was tired and overwhelmed and happy and terrified all at once. She nodded like she understood even though she couldn't possibly. Then she brought up something I wasn't expecting. She said she had been thinking about what kind of relationship we could have going forward. That she knew we couldn't go back to how things were. That she had accepted that. But she wanted to know if I could ever see us being close again. Maybe not the way we were as kids. But something. I thought about it for a while before answering. I told her I didn't know. That I was still working through everything that happened. That trust doesn't just come back because someone apologizes and shows up with baby gifts. She said she knew that. But she wanted to try anyway. She said she didn't have many people left in her life after burning bridges with Malcolm's crowd. That she realized too late how valuable real relationships are. I told her I noticed she said valuable instead of important. She looked confused. I explained that it seemed like she was here because she needed family now that her other options didn't work out. Not because she actually missed me specifically. Just because she needed someone and I was available. Cassidy got quiet. Then she said maybe that was part of it. That she couldn't deny she was lonely. But that didn't mean she didn't genuinely want to rebuild with me. That both things could be true at once. I appreciated the honesty at least. I told her we could keep doing what we were doing. Occasional texts. Occasional visits. But I wasn't ready to let her deep into my life again. That she would need to accept being on the outside for a while. Maybe permanently. She asked if there was anything she could do to change that. I told her no. That this was just how things were now. She stayed for another hour. Held Ariel again when she woke up. Helped me fold some laundry. Normal everyday things. When she left, she hugged me. It felt slightly less awkward than the coffee shop hug. But still not natural. My husband asked me later if I thought Cassidy and I would ever be close again. I told him probably not. That too much had happened. That even if she spent the next 10 years being a perfect cousin, I would always remember her choosing Tiffany over me. Always remember her calling me too awkward for her new life. Always remember her blaming me for not saving her from her own mistakes. Those things don't just disappear. My mom asked me the same question last week when she came to visit. I gave her a similar answer. She said she understood but hoped time would heal things. I told her time doesn't heal things. It just makes them fade. And maybe faded is the best we can hope for. Cassidy still texts me a few times a week. She came by again yesterday to drop off some groceries. She's trying. I can see that. But trying doesn't undo the past year and a half. It doesn't bring back the version of us that existed before Malcolm. Before Tiffany. Before Cassidy decided I wasn't good enough for her wedding party. My aunt mentioned to my mom that Cassidy is seeing someone new. Nothing serious. Just casual dating. Someone she met through work. Someone normal who doesn't come with a country club membership and family money. My aunt seemed relieved about that. Like maybe Cassidy learned her lesson about choosing partners based on status. I don't know if Cassidy learned anything honestly. I think she's just scared now. Scared of being alone. Scared of making the same mistakes. But fear isn't the same as growth. And I'm not interested in being someone's safety net while they figure themselves out. So this is where we are. Cassidy is in my life but not really in my life. She's Ariel's aunt in name. She comes by sometimes. We text sometimes. But we're not sisters anymore. Not the way we promised each other we would be when we were teenagers watching romantic movies in her basement. That promise broke a long time ago. And some things, once broken, don't go back together the same way. They stay broken. You just learn to work around the sharp edges. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2. My Sil and Bill have been getting revenge on us for years because they think we got more inheritance money. When I called her a greedy C word and she overheard, she screamed in front of everyone I, 38M, have been married to Jenny, 36F, for 12 years, and we have 3 kids, Tommy, 10M, Alice, 7F, and Lizzie, 1.5F. Until a few weeks ago, I would have said we had a great relationship with her parents, Frank, 65M, and Doris, 62F, as well as her sister Vanessa, 34F, and brother-in-law Ryan, 39M, who have 2 kids of their own, Max, 8M, and Emma, 6F. The mess I'm about to describe has been brewing for a long time, but it all came to a head last weekend when I stupidly called my sister-in-law a very nasty name that she overheard. I'll get to that part, but first you need the backstory. My family and Jenny's family have always existed in separate spheres. My parents and sister live about 80 miles away, while Jenny's parents live just 10 minutes from us. My sister Becky, 36F, has never even met Vanessa or Ryan in all these years. It's just how things worked out, no bad blood, just separate social circles. 3 weeks ago, I hosted a barbecue for Becky's birthday. It was just my side of the family, Becky, her husband, my parents, and a few of Becky's friends. Vanessa and Ryan weren't invited, which was normal since our families don't usually mix. A few days later, Jenny happened to mention the barbecue to Vanessa during a coffee meetup. Vanessa said something like she and Ryan always enjoyed the food from my barbecues, and Jenny, being thoughtful, offered to put together a box of leftovers for them. Vanessa seemed pleased, so later that day, Jenny packed up a generous box with half a chicken, ribs, sausages, and a steak skewer. We dropped it off at Frank and Doris's house, where Vanessa was supposed to pick it up. That's when things got weird. Over the next 2 weeks, whenever we visited Frank and Doris, we noticed both Vanessa's and Ryan's cars parked in the lay-by outside their house. This was unusual since they usually just brought one car when visiting with the kids. Eventually, we asked Frank about it. He told us Ryan's explanation. They were having parking issues at their own place, so Ryan would park his car in the lay-by at night, walk home, then fetch Vanessa's car, park it there, and walk home again. In the morning, he'd reverse the whole process. It sounded ridiculous, but we didn't push it. Last Sunday, we went to Frank and Doris's for our regular weekend visit and found Vanessa, Ryan, and their kids already there, hanging out in the garden. Both cars were presumably in the lay-by again. I decided to ask Ryan directly why they brought 2 cars. He repeated the story about parking problems at home and said he preferred parking where he knew there was space. He described this complicated routine, walking there, driving one car home, picking up the family, and driving back in the second car. I knew Ryan was lying. They have a driveway and street parking. Their house isn't in an area with parking restrictions. The whole explanation made no sense. Jenny suggested Ryan could park closer, right on her parents' driveway, noting it would be easier with young kids than crossing the road from the lay-by. Ryan refused, claiming, "You can't get 3 cars there," which was clearly false. Frank and Doris's driveway easily fits 3 cars. That's when Vanessa jumped in with a strange comment. "Not nice when something is used up before you get yours, is it?" Jenny and I exchanged confused looks but didn't ask what she meant. We had a tense afternoon with everyone, and later that evening, Jenny texted Vanessa to find out what was wrong. What came back was a flood of messages revealing that Vanessa and Ryan were furious with us, and the car parking stunt was deliberate payback for what they perceived as our mistreatment of them. The core of the issue traces back to Jenny's grandmother's death last year. She was 94 and Frank had been taking care of her for over a decade, making a 110-mile round trip several times a week, sometimes daily toward the end. I occasionally helped out when my work took me near Grandma's place. Grandma's will was outdated and technically left everything to Frank. He found a notebook that was part will, part diary, and tried to distribute funds according to what he believed his mother would have wanted. He initially gave both families $8,000, split $2,000 per person, me, Jenny, and our 2 kids at the time, and Vanessa, Ryan, and their 2 kids. Here's where things got complicated. When this money was distributed, Jenny was pregnant with Lizzie. Frank insisted on including our unborn child in the distribution, so our family got $8,000 while Vanessa's family also got $8,000. Frank was incredibly generous with the entire inheritance. He contacted every family member he could find and gave them $2,000 each. Frank also discovered a specific investment account of about $20,000 that Grandma had set aside for driving lessons and cars for her two granddaughters, Jenny and Vanessa. He split this fund between them, giving each about $10,000. Jenny and I already had licenses and a fairly new car. We used the $10,000 plus a trade-in of our old car, valued at $18,000, to upgrade to a larger family vehicle to accommodate our growing family. We had about $1,800 left over from the $10,000, which we returned to Frank, feeling it was the right thing to do. Without telling us, Frank gave that $1,800 to Vanessa and Ryan. Apparently, he jokingly referred to it as our leftovers, a term we had no idea about. Vanessa and Ryan had calculated that our family received $18,000, trade-in, plus $8,000, initial gift, equals $26,000 for our car, while they only received $10,000, car fund, plus $1,800, our returned money, plus $8,000, initial gift, equals $19,800 total. They completely misunderstood how money works, confusing the trade-in value of our old car with received cash. They somehow believed all money related to both families should have been pooled and split equally. Because of this misunderstanding, they started interpreting everything we did as an insult or as flaunting our supposed wealth. There was also a family holiday fund from Grandma. We went on a 3-week trip to Italy, while Vanessa and Ryan couldn't attend because Ryan had just started his own business and couldn't take time off. We later learned they were struggling financially at the time and had asked Frank for their share of the holiday money in cash. We had no idea about this when we sent postcards and brought back gifts, which they perceived as rubbing salt in the wound. So back to last weekend. After learning all this, Jenny and I decided to go to Frank and Doris's house the next morning to talk things through. As we approached the house, I asked Jenny privately, "If they ask why you're asking, are you going to explain that Vanessa is being a big old greedy C?" What I didn't realize was that Vanessa was in the garden and overheard me. She immediately started shouting, "What did you effing call me?" and continued yelling while I stood there in shock. I grabbed our dog's leash and walked home, leaving Jenny to deal with the aftermath. She texted me, "Do you want me to tell her you said sorry?" I replied no. She responded, "Not helping." Before my comment was overheard, Jenny had been on my side regarding the underlying issues, viewing the situation primarily as a misunderstanding. My big mouth made everything much worse. I should mention that I'm generally thick-skinned and often assume potentially offensive comments aren't meant maliciously. This has caused problems before, as I forget not everyone thinks like me, and I fail to notice when I've caused offense. As the day progressed, Jenny spent hours talking with Vanessa and decided to stay overnight at her mom's to continue the discussions. She relayed more details about the misunderstandings that had built up. Apparently, the strange parking behavior was Vanessa's attempt to make us notice and ask what was wrong, as she felt uncomfortable raising the issue directly. Our failure to pick up on this was interpreted as deliberate avoidance. There were many other incidents I had no idea were causing problems. When Lizzie was born, Frank gave her $1,000, standard for all grandkids. I jokingly called her the richest baby in all the land. Vanessa and Ryan took this as me gloating about winning the argument over the unborn baby's inclusion in the inheritance. When Ryan mentioned quitting his job to start a business at the beginning of COVID, I commented, "Oh, bad timing," meaning the pandemic made it a tough economic climate. They took this as criticism of Ryan's business capability. I called Ryan on the way home with our new car specifically to show it off. I was excited about my first new car. I had no idea they couldn't afford such a car and were struggling financially. During lockdown, I gave them an old laptop and printer for their kids' homework. Ryan bought games for it that wouldn't run, wasting his money and leading to an argument between him and Vanessa. When Vanessa later texted asking the laptop's age, my casual reply, "I don't know, a couple of years," was interpreted as another instance of giving them leftovers. I also gave them an old Xbox 360 and Wii. While the kids were happy, Ryan was unimpressed with the old tech. Later, on a Zoom call, I jokingly told Max I only gave him the Xbox so we could discuss a game called Skyrim, urging him to play it. This reignited an argument. Ryan had put the Wii in the living room and Xbox in the bedroom, as a DVD player. Max used my words to argue he should control the Xbox. Finally, about the barbecue box, I always make extra food and call the packages leftovers generically. The box for Vanessa was generous, half a chicken, ribs, sausage, steak skewer. Since no one was home at Frank and Doris's when we dropped it off, and we needed to differentiate between boxes, for example, no spice for Doris, I wrote Vanessa's lovely leftovers on her box with a marker pen. Now I realize that labeling the box this way, combined with the car money being called leftovers by Frank, plus the perceived leftover status of the laptop and consoles, made it seem like a deliberate, final insult designed to emphasize their perceived lower status. While I never intended to upset anyone, from their perspective, given everything that happened, I understand why they're so angry. Nearly every major argument they've had recently can be traced back to something I said or did, often unknowingly triggering issues related to money or perceived slights. Jenny is still mediating, but I don't know how we come back from this. The name-calling incident from the morning wasn't even the main focus of Jenny's later conversation, suggesting the underlying issues are now taking precedence. Am I the a-hole here? Update 1. It's been almost a month since everything blew up, and I wanted to update everyone on what's happened since. First, I want to thank everyone who commented on my original post. Reading through your comments really helped me understand just how badly I messed up, not just with the name-calling incident but with my general lack of awareness of how my words and actions were affecting Vanessa and Ryan. The day after I posted, Jenny came home from her parents' house. She'd spent 2 nights there talking with Vanessa, Ryan, Frank, and Doris. She told me Vanessa had agreed to meet with us, but only at Frank and Doris's house with them present as mediators. I agreed immediately. The meeting was set for the following weekend. I spent the week thinking about everything that had happened and making a list of all the times I'd said or done something that could have been misinterpreted. It was a depressingly long list. When the day came, I was nervous. Jenny and I arrived at her parents' house before Vanessa and Ryan. Frank and Doris were unusually quiet and formal with me, which was understandable. When Vanessa and Ryan arrived, the tension in the room was thick. Vanessa wouldn't look at me directly, and Ryan had his jaw clenched the entire time. Frank started the conversation by laying out some ground rules: no interrupting, no raised voices, and everyone gets a chance to speak. He asked Vanessa to start. Vanessa spoke for almost 30 minutes without stopping. She detailed every incident from her perspective, starting with the inheritance distribution. What struck me most was that it wasn't really about the money at all, it was about feeling valued and respected within the family. When Vanessa and Ryan were struggling financially after Ryan started his business, they felt embarrassed having to ask Frank for help. They never told anyone else in the family about their situation because Ryan was proud and didn't want people to think his business was failing. So when I called to show off my new car, or when we sent postcards from Italy, or when I gave them what I thought were helpful hand-me-downs, it all reinforced their feeling that we were flourishing while they were struggling. The final straw was indeed the barbecue box labeled leftovers. Vanessa explained that after years of feeling like they were always getting our cast-offs or seconds, that box symbolized exactly how she felt we viewed them, worthy only of our scraps. When it was my turn to speak, I apologized sincerely for the name-calling incident. I explained that it was said in a moment of frustration and wasn't something I actually thought about her. I then went through my list, acknowledging each time I'd said or done something hurtful, explaining my actual intention, and apologizing for the impact regardless of my intent. I made it clear that I never meant to make them feel less valued or respected, and that I had been completely unaware of their financial situation. Had I known, I would never have flaunted our new car or our holiday or offered them old electronics that might have seemed like an insult. Ryan spoke next. He was calmer than I expected but extremely direct. He said that while he appreciated my apology, the damage had been done. He pointed out that it wasn't just 1 or 2 incidents but a pattern over years that made them feel like second-class family members. He also revealed something I hadn't known. Frank had always spoken highly of me, particularly about how I helped with Grandma. This had inadvertently created a sense of competition, with Ryan feeling he could never measure up to Frank's golden son-in-law. Frank then chimed in, looking uncomfortable. He admitted that his joking reference to the $1,800 as leftovers had been inappropriate and had likely contributed to the problem. He also acknowledged that he should have been clearer about the inheritance distribution to avoid any misunderstandings. Doris, who had been quiet until then, suddenly spoke up. She'd been keeping a secret from all of us. Grandma had told her specifically that she wanted Jenny to have extra money for her 3rd child, as she had a premonition she wouldn't live to see the baby born. Doris had never told Frank this, assuming he knew, and Frank had never mentioned it to anyone when distributing the money. This revelation stunned everyone in the room. Had this been communicated clearly from the beginning, much of the misunderstanding might have been avoided. The conversation continued for hours, with moments of tension and moments of clarity. By the end, we had a better understanding of each other's perspectives, but it was clear that rebuilding trust would take time. We agreed on a few concrete steps forward. I would stop giving unsolicited gifts or hand-me-downs to Vanessa and Ryan's family. We would be more open about family finances when making joint decisions. We would have monthly family dinners at Frank and Doris's house to keep the lines of communication open. I would text Vanessa directly rather than always going through Jenny when I wanted to communicate with her. After Vanessa and Ryan left, Jenny and I stayed to talk with Frank and Doris. Frank pulled me aside and told me that while he understood both sides, he appreciated that I had taken responsibility for my part in the conflict. He asked me to be patient with Vanessa, saying she had always been sensitive about feeling less successful than her sister. On the drive home, Jenny admitted she'd been worried the meeting would make things worse, but she felt cautiously optimistic. She also revealed that Vanessa had told her privately that the name-calling incident, while hurtful, had actually forced them to address issues they had been bottling up for years. We had our first family dinner 2 weeks ago. It was awkward, with conversation feeling forced and everyone being overly polite. Ryan was still distant with me, but Vanessa made an effort to engage, asking about Tommy's new school project. The kids, oblivious to the adult tension, played together as if nothing had happened, which was a relief to see. The strange car parking has stopped. They now bring just one car to Frank and Doris's house, though they still park it in the lay-by rather than on the driveway. Baby steps, I guess. I know we have a long way to go, but at least we're talking now. The hurt runs deep, and some of the trust may never be fully restored. But we're trying, for the kids' sake if nothing else. I'll update again if there are any significant developments. Update 2. It's been about 2 months since my last update, and there have been some unexpected developments I wanted to share. First, the good news, our monthly family dinners have continued, and each one has been slightly less awkward than the last. The kids are always happy to see each other, which helps break the ice for the adults. Last week, Ryan actually laughed at one of my jokes, which felt like a small victory. Vanessa and I have been texting occasionally, mostly about practical matters like coordinating visits to Frank and Doris, but also sharing the occasional funny kid story. It's not exactly warm, but it's civil and functional. Now for the complicated part. About 3 weeks ago, Ryan's business partner embezzled a significant amount of money from their company, leaving Ryan in a terrible financial position. Their business was already struggling due to the economic downturn, but this was potentially catastrophic. Vanessa called Jenny in tears, asking if she could watch their kids for a few days while they dealt with lawyers and bank meetings. Of course, Jenny agreed immediately. While the kids were staying with us, Max let slip that his parents might have to sell their house. He was upset and confused, and though we tried to reassure him without making promises, it was clear the situation was serious. When Vanessa came to pick up the kids, she looked exhausted. Jenny asked her to stay for dinner, and after the kids were in bed, Vanessa broke down and told us everything. They were 3 months behind on their mortgage, Ryan's business partner had disappeared with nearly $50,000, and they were considering bankruptcy. Without thinking, I offered to lend them money to help with the immediate crisis. As soon as the words left my mouth, I regretted it, remembering how sensitive they were about financial matters. But to my surprise, Vanessa didn't get upset. Instead, she explained that Ryan would never accept money from us, his pride wouldn't allow it, especially given our history. However, she asked if we could help in another way, by speaking to Frank and Doris about potentially lending them some money until the legal issues with the business were resolved. I immediately agreed, and the next day, Jenny and I went to talk to her parents. Frank was concerned but willing to help. Doris was hesitant, worried they might never see the money again given Ryan's business troubles. During this conversation, Frank revealed something that shocked us. When he distributed Grandma's inheritance, he had actually held back a significant portion, about $100,000, as an emergency fund for both daughters. He had never told anyone about this, intending it to be a safety net for truly dire circumstances. Jenny and I were stunned. I asked Frank why he hadn't mentioned this money during our big family meeting when all the inheritance issues were being discussed. He admitted he was worried that if everyone knew about it, they might feel entitled to it even for non-emergencies. This put me in an uncomfortable position. On one hand, I felt that withholding this information had contributed to the misunderstandings between our families. On the other hand, it wasn't my place to reveal it to Vanessa and Ryan if Frank didn't want to. After much discussion, Frank decided he would offer Ryan and Vanessa a loan from this fund, but without revealing its full extent or source, simply saying he had been saving for emergencies. I disagreed with this approach but respected his decision. The next time we saw Ryan and Vanessa, the atmosphere was different. Ryan pulled me aside and thanked me for whatever I had said to Frank. He explained that Frank had offered them a loan with very generous terms, enough to keep them afloat while they sorted out the business mess. Ryan seemed genuinely grateful, but there was still an underlying tension. He mentioned that he had been surprised by Frank's sudden financial generosity, given that Frank had always claimed to have distributed all of Grandma's money already. I felt trapped between loyalties. I didn't want to undermine Frank by revealing what I knew, but I also didn't want to lie to Ryan if he asked me directly about it. Fortunately, he didn't press the issue. Over the next few weeks, Vanessa and Ryan's immediate financial crisis eased thanks to Frank's loan. They were able to keep their house, and Ryan was working with a lawyer to try to recover some of the embezzled funds. During our most recent family dinner, I noticed Ryan and Frank having an intense, whispered conversation in the corner. Ryan looked upset, and Frank appeared defensive. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I could guess the topic. Later that evening, as we were leaving, Ryan approached me in the driveway. He asked me point blank if I knew about the emergency fund before their financial crisis. I froze, not wanting to lie but also not wanting to betray Frank's confidence. My hesitation was answer enough. Ryan nodded slowly and said, "I thought so. Always the insider, aren't you?" He walked away before I could respond. That was a week ago, and I haven't heard from either of them since. Jenny texted Vanessa, who replied that she was busy and would get back to her later, but never did. The progress we'd made in repairing our relationship seems to have evaporated. I'm worried that this new secret coming to light has only reinforced their belief that they're outsiders in the family. I'm not sure what to do now. Part of me thinks Frank should come clean about the entire inheritance situation, but it's not my place to demand that. Another part wonders if I should have just lied to Ryan when he asked me about the fund. The whole situation is a mess, and I can't help feeling we've taken several steps backward. I'll update again when I know more. Update 3. It's been 4 months since my last update, and a lot has changed. Some for the better, some. Well, it's complicated. After the emergency fund revelation, things were tense between all of us for about a month. Our family dinners were canceled twice, with Vanessa citing various excuses. When we did finally get together, Ryan barely spoke to anyone except the kids. The breaking point came when Frank decided to sell his house. He and Doris had been talking about downsizing for years, but the family tension accelerated their decision. They found a smaller place about 30 miles away, closer to Frank's brother. When they announced this at dinner one evening, Vanessa broke down. Through tears, she accused Frank of running away from the family problems he had created with his secrecy and favoritism. Frank defended himself, saying his financial decisions were made with the best intentions. What happened next surprised everyone. Ryan stood up and told Frank that they didn't want his money anymore. He pushed an envelope across the table. It contained a check for the full amount Frank had loaned them, plus interest. Ryan explained that his business partner had been located, and some of the money had been recovered. They had also taken out a bank loan to cover the rest. The atmosphere in the room was electric. Frank stared at the check for a long moment, then tore it in half. He told Ryan that the money was never a loan, it was Vanessa's inheritance. Frank finally admitted to everyone that he had indeed held back money from Grandma's estate, creating the emergency fund because he was worried about Ryan's business stability. This honesty, while long overdue, changed everything. For the first time, all the cards were on the table. Frank explained his exact reasoning for every financial decision he had made regarding Grandma's estate. Some of his logic was flawed, some was well-intentioned but poorly executed, but it was all finally out in the open. After that explosive dinner, Jenny and I invited Vanessa and Ryan to our house, just the four of us, no parents, no kids. It was the first time we'd been alone together since the original conflict began. We talked for hours. Really talked, no accusations, no defensiveness, just honest communication about how we all felt and what we wanted moving forward. Ryan admitted that his pride had made many situations worse than they needed to be. Vanessa acknowledged that she had often assumed the worst about our intentions rather than asking for clarification. I apologized again for my careless words and actions over the years and promised to be more thoughtful going forward. Jenny spoke about feeling caught in the middle and how painful it had been to see her family torn apart. By the end of the evening, we hadn't resolved everything, but we had cleared the air significantly. We agreed to start fresh, without the weight of past misunderstandings hanging over us. In the months since then, we've established a new normal. Frank and Doris moved to their new house, which has actually helped in some ways. Now neither family is closer to the in-laws, and we all make the same effort to visit them. Ryan's business is slowly recovering. He's taken on a new partner, one with a solid reputation in the industry, and they're rebuilding their client base. They're not out of the woods financially, but things are looking up. The inheritance issue has been settled once and for all. Frank divided the remaining emergency fund equally between Jenny and Vanessa, with proper documentation and complete transparency. This time, there were no conditions or complications, just a straightforward division of assets. As for our relationship with Vanessa and Ryan, it's better but different. We get together about once a month, sometimes at our house, sometimes at theirs. The conversation is easier now, though there are still moments of awkwardness. The biggest change is in how we communicate. If something bothers one of us, we say it directly rather than letting it fester. If there's a misunderstanding, we clarify immediately instead of making assumptions. Last week, I was helping Ryan move some furniture in their house, something I never would have been asked to do a year ago, and he mentioned that he still had that old Xbox I'd given them. He said Max had finally played Skyrim and was obsessed with it. It was a small moment, but it felt like acknowledgement that not everything I had done had been harmful or insulting. I won't pretend everything is perfect. There's still an undercurrent of caution in our interactions, a sense that we're all trying very hard not to step on old wounds. Some trust has been rebuilt, but not all of it. Some hurts have healed, but others have left scars. What I've learned from this whole experience is that family relationships are incredibly fragile things. Small misunderstandings can grow into insurmountable barriers if they're not addressed. Well-intentioned actions can cause harm if they're not considered from the other person's perspective. And secrets, no matter how well-meaning, almost always cause more problems than they solve. I don't know what the future holds for our extended family. I hope we continue to move forward, to build stronger and healthier relationships. But I know now that it requires constant effort and attention from all of us. It's work I'm willing to do. Thank you to everyone who followed this saga and offered advice along the way. Your perspective helped me see things more clearly when I was lost in the middle of it all.